Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Woodburn Accountants and Advisors China webinar series on e-commerce in China. This is going to be a long week because we are only on day one, part one of this webinar series. We will be highlighting a different topic about e-commerce in China on each day of this week. You've got the full agenda listed here on this slide. If you haven't registered for all webinars, I do recommend you to do so because it will give you a complete overview of the potential and opportunities that exist when doing e-commerce in China. So successfully penetrating China's massive e-commerce market is a challenge for brands across the world in a variety of industries. While commerce moves quickly, attitudes and perceptions can be very slow to catch up. But as knowledge of and visibility into the e-commerce trends in China becomes more common and more widespread, what once seemed like an opaque quagmire has become an area of opportunity for brands who approach the task with the right tools and tactics in hand. The goal and the aim of this week's webinar series is to provide you with the right tools and tactics, as well as a network of individuals besides myself that can help you create an ecosystem of partners to help you develop an e-commerce strategy for China. And I hope that is something that you will obtain at the end of today's, or at the end of this week's series. Now, before we start today's presentation, I do always have a couple of intro slides just to get to know who is in today's presentation. So for those of you that have joined us before, I know who you are, but if you haven't communicated with me, then please do communicate. This is going to be 60 to 70 minutes of your time spent. The more you communicate with me, the more I will be able to gear this presentation to you, okay? This is a free session. Use it to your value. I won't be asking for a lot of details about you, but I will be asking for some. And this is one of the slides where I will be asking for you to communicate with me. So what I want to know is, who are you? Are you a newbie to China? Are you a startup in China? Or are you an experienced China hand? To give you an understanding of what I mean by that, is newbies generally are those that haven't incorporated in China. They haven't transacted yet with China. They found an opportunity. They're trying to gain an understanding of what that return on that opportunity will be and how to actually create the right setting for their business. Startups in China are usually those of you that have already transacted or incorporated an entity in China. Transacted means you've actually done a couple of transactions between your head office in China. You've probably done this for, I don't know, a period of 1 to 3 years, 1 to 5 years. And you've been so focused on the core aspect of your business, which is probably sales or sourcing or service, that you might not thought about all the administrative and compliance issues that are surrounding your business and how you can make it more optimized and efficient. Experienced China hands, I'm one of those. I've been in the market for 17 years, and I'm always going on seminars and reading information about China because things do change, regulations change. If not daily anymore, at least monthly, and it's always good to get updated on how things work, tips on how to do business in China, how to improve your business in China. So I would love for you to just click on the chat section of this control panel, type in newbie, type in startup, type in experienced China hand. So it's great here. There's Emma, who's told me she's a newbie. Parish, I know, is also a newbie / startup. Guys, Jack is a newbie. Thank you. I really appreciate when people come in and tell me Rod is between a startup and an experienced China hand. Fantastic. Claire is a newbie. Love it. Really, really hope you guys keep. Elena's a newbie. Crispin's a newbie. Fantastic. I really appreciate all of you guys coming in and telling me what you're doing. Please keep that up in today's session. All right. The best is when we make it as interactive as possible. So how this webinar works, I basically educate you. So today I'll be educating you on how to protect your brand on e-commerce platforms, okay? If you've got questions about any of the content or something is not clear to you, add it into the question section of the control panel. So in the control panel, you'll have a question section, a chat section. Add it into the question section. So I have only one place to look at when we hit the Q&A. I will be staying online until every question or comment is answered. Okay? This is a value spend of your time. Use it wisely, ask away. If you are shy and you don't want to ask it, or you don't want me to reveal your question to everybody, then there are a variety of ways you can reach out to me, either email, WeChat, or LinkedIn, and I will be happy to have a direct discussion with you. I can understand there might be some things you don't want to add on here, okay? And I'll be giving you all of those details a little bit later on. So what are we covering today? We are covering a lot of things today. Everything from what is a trademark, what is a brand basically, what are the rules and regulations about it, and then what is a strategy for you to develop to protect your brand in general, and then to protect it specifically on e-commerce platforms. How can I help you? So first of all, I'm not using the webcam because I think a lot of you are still working from home, and I know the bandwidth of people at home is not great. So here is a picture of me, so you have an understanding of what I look like. How am I able to help you, and who am I? My name is Christina Kohler-Coluccia. I'm the head of business advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. My expertise has been for the last 17 years on inbound investment into China. China is the sole market that I have a knowledge base on. And for 17 years, I've been helping foreign investors with their market entry strategies, their implementations, as well as their growth in China. And that is looking at everything from a corporate compliance perspective, and ultimately protecting their business in China, whether they're simply transacting, or whether they also have an entity in China. I'm a speaker, I'm an author, and I'm also a creator of the China Roadmap Method, which if you don't know what that is, don't worry, because I've got a webinar on this specific topic come October 13th. The China Roadmap methodology is basically a 9-step, 3-milestone methodology to get you on the right path for your China journey. It's making sure you cross the T's, dot the I's, and you've got everything considered for your China journey, regardless of whether you are doing manufacturing, whether you're in retail, whether you're doing e-commerce, whether you're doing distribution, whether you're simply sourcing, all right? If you're interested in joining for this webinar, the link is here. Like I said, you'll get a copy of the presentation, but on top of that, you can go to our website, woodburnglobal.com/events, and sign up for it. It is a great webinar if you are looking to get all of the details about, or all the bullet points about how to properly structure your business for China. All right, let's start off with today's presentation with what are the problems, right? Why should you be concerned by protecting your brand in China, right? Well, first of all, because there are IP squatters and IP hijackers, because there are product counterfeiters, and simply because it is so easy to register and that anybody can do it, that your suppliers, your customers, your agents, your employees could take your brand away from you. So these are the scary points. This is why you should be creating a strategy around protecting your brand in China. Now, I just want to emphasize here, because everyone in the media generally talks so badly about China on these topics, but quite frankly, anybody around the world can steal your brand, okay? Whether you decide to do market entry into Brazil, Russia, South Africa, India, wherever in the world, you will have people who are trying to steal your brand, okay? And the biggest question you need to ask yourself is the following: how much is your brand worth to you? Your brand that you've been building up, for some of you, generations, if you're a family-owned business, for generations, what is the worth of your brand? Are you prepared to change your brand for China if someone has taken it from you? Are you prepared to pay huge amounts of money to take your brand back if someone has taken it from you? Okay, we want to avoid all of this because just like I'm sure like me, like everybody that's on today's presentation, they know that there is a value to their brand, whether it's a financial value, whether it's just a, theoretical value, there is a value to your brand. There is an importance to your brand. And especially if you are going international from out of your home jurisdiction, whether that's going to the US, the rest of Europe, going to South America, or going to China, you want to be able to protect your brand, your image, your quality. You want to protect all of that, okay? So maybe as a first step, something to not just simply jot down, what is the value of your brand to you? Can you put a number on it? All right, and analyze all the things I'm going to talk today about how simple it is to protect it and how it's not expensive. Okay, that's what I want to highlight because I see a variety of people that come to me. Okay, one, they want to go into China, they know there's an opportunity, but they need to create a step-by-step plan, and that's all about the China roadmap methodology. It's creating that step-by-step plan. The others, they've done their research, they've got an idea of their step-by-step plan, but there's a bit of anxiety, hesitance of going in. Okay, we want to avoid all of that. We want to get you into the market, grab that opportunity, but we've got to make sure that you've got system processes in your organization to protect everything around your brand, your company, your leadership, your ownership, your people. All right. So now I just want to emphasize here, what I'm going to go through today, this is in reality very much common sense information. Okay, there's nothing that's going to be wildly new. You're probably all going to be joining in, and as I go slide to slide, you'll be like, I get it. Like, this is easy. We can do it straight away. You can do this all straight away. All right. So what is considered a trademark in China? So it's a visual sign, any word, design, letters of an alphabet, numerals, three-dimensional symbols, combinations of color, etc. Okay, so it's your brand, it's your logo, it's, I don't know, it's maybe a phrase that you've created that highlights your business, like Nike has just do it. You know when you see just do it that it's Nike. So it can be all of these things, all right? That's considered a brand. Now I've used Woodburn here as an example, okay? So Woodburn, we've got our logo, we've got the words Woodburn Accountants and Advisors, and we've got the two of those items put together as one unit, okay, of the brand. I utilize very rarely just the logo and just Woodburn Accountants and Advisors, and as a consequence, I made a decision when going into China to just register the logo plus the words as part of my trademark registration. So when you are, again, another homework piece basically for you is highlighting what are your brands, what are your items that you want to protect. Is it the logo? Is it the logo plus words? Is it just the words? Is it phrases? You've got to go through that internal analysis to understand what you want to protect in China. Now, here's a tip. Think about how you're going to be marketing. Are you going to be marketing with an English name or a Chinese name? Are you going to be marketing with a logo? Are you going to be marketing words plus logo? Are you going to be marketing just words, just logo? All right. Are you going to be marketing things in color or just black and white? Think about if you are dealing in products, which hopefully most of you are because you're on today's presentation, is when you sell your product, is the logo on labels? Is the brand on labels? What is on the labels? Is it on the packaging? If you're selling t-shirts and there's usually a plastic bag around the t-shirt, is it on that bag? Is it on the carton? If so, what is on the carton? Is it the logo, the words, the logo plus the words, the colors, just black and white? You've got to think about your full supply chain and where your brand might be popping up. When you look at the product itself, if it's a consumer product, is the logo on it? Where is it? You've got to be able to protect all of that, right? And I will be going through case studies today of horror stories that have happened. Who should register their mark in China? Who should be registering their brand in China? I've listed a lot of things here, all right? Whether you're trading in China, manufacturing in China, providing services in China. You know, one thing I didn't mention was, very simply, if your logo is on a service agreement, yeah, service agreements, contracts, invoices, you should be protecting that, okay? Because you're utilizing it on internal company documentation, not just for marketing and for products. So here I've listed everything. Ultimately, conclusion is everyone doing business in China should be registering their trademark, okay? You might say to me, well, I've never done business in China. I've never transacted in China, but I've been to a trade show. Oh, well, trade show means you're doing business in China. You've gone to a trade show. You've had name cards. You've been swapping those name cards. Don't tell me your logo or your brand has not been on that name card. Everyone does. Everyone puts their brand on their name card, okay? Have you been giving out product profiles? Have you been giving out price listings with your logo and brand on it? It means, you know, you're in that research phase, but you're still doing a form of business even though you're in the research phase. Everyone who should be doing business in China should be registering their trademark and their brand, okay? Everyone. If you are saying to me, I have no intention of doing business in China ever, you don't need to register your brand in China. If you're going to tell me, yes, I'm planning on doing business in China, you should have registered it yesterday. Now, I don't want to put pressure on you. Actually, yes, I do. I do want to put pressure on you because when I go through the case studies later on today, you will see where the problems lie if you don't register your trademark, okay? Everyone should be thinking about registering their, if you are on this webinar, it means you are interested in doing business in China and you need to register your trademark, okay? So what should you be doing first, okay? And this is what I recommend to everybody because I have seen clients get through the trademark registration process to only be halted at the 9-month mark to be told it's been rejected, okay? And they never did a search. Do, as a first step, a search. Now, searches are not mandatory. Excuse me, they're not mandatory. They're not required. But I highly recommend you to do it because you will get then an analysis of what is your success rate of getting your brand approved or your trademark approved in China, all right? The whole process to register your trademark will take between 12 and 16 months to get fully registered. In theory, you should not be doing any marketing activities until that is done, okay? So keep this in mind, that do a search. You'll find out very quickly whether it is available and what chance of success you have, because nobody should be giving you guarantees, the chance of success you have to get your trademark registered and approved. Now, in China, this is the disadvantage. The disadvantage of the trademark system is that it is a first to file system, which allows anyone to register a trademark irrespective of whether it is owned by another party or it is used in another jurisdiction. So if a trademark is not currently registered in China, anyone can lay claim to it, okay? And this basically means that your trademarks could be legally owned by another party, leaving you locked out of China, having to either go the route of getting a lawyer to purchase the trademark or to go through a lawsuit to say that that individual has taken or registered the trademark unfaithfully, unethically, or you have to rebrand. All three ways are a nightmare. Can't even tell you, all right? So keep that in mind. It's a first to file system, and I hope this slide gives you a little bit of pressure. Here are the considerations for registering your trademark. I want you all to take these considerations. This is for you, the homework slide, okay? So first of all, the homework is understanding what are your brand assets, okay? Make a list, logos, words, phrases, symbols, etc., right? Make your list of what your brand assets are and then we can move forward. Then you need to do a trademark search to understand the availability. We just did a trademark search for a client the other day and discovered that the logos, i.e. the picture designs, would have a greater chance of success, whereas the actual word and brand name, the name of the brand, which is the words, would be automatically rejected. That is what a search does. It gives you this analysis of what will work and what won't work and how to protect yourself, okay? You've got to also decide what entity you want to own this trademark. And again, another company I spoke to a few weeks ago, they have an entity in China. They haven't registered their trademark yet. And they said, yeah, we want China to own it. Okay, now I asked them why, what's the reasoning? Well, doesn't it make sense for China? No, it doesn't, because if you want to start repatriating profits outside of China, the easiest methodology around that is through a trademark licensing agreement. But it means that the shareholding company or an entity abroad has to hold that trademark in order to repatriate funds overseas. So, you know, there has to be some thought and strategy around who is going to own those brands and trademarks. Don't just think about the short term, evaluate also about how you're going to repatriate funds abroad. And remember, this is an easy method to do that. What is actually a little bit more complicated is understanding what classes and subclasses of goods and services that you want to register your mark in. Now, again, this is a big homework piece. First of all, you can look, well, hopefully you have registered your mark in your home jurisdiction. If you've done that, then you understand the whole class and subclass system. You have an idea around, you know, what have been the class numbers, the class headings, and then subclasses that are underneath there. That's already provided to you. So you take that, and then we go into further detail. So again, another homework piece is saying, here's a bullet point list of what we're going to do in China. We're going to trade in XYZ goods. We're going to provide services in XYZ goods. We are going to sell and market in XYZ goods. This is all different classes and subclasses. Okay, so doing this bullet point list will help the person be able to analyze what classes and subclasses would be suitable for them. Okay, and the idea is that you are 100% protected both in the short and in the long term. So this is your big homework piece. If you haven't registered yet, okay, this is something big for you. If you have registered your trademarks, have you thought of all of these aspects? And if you haven't, you might want to backtrack a little bit to protect it even further. Okay, now, who are we protecting our brands from? In China, there are two groups. There's the trademark hijackers or brand hijackers, and then you've got the IP squatters. And these are individuals that go ahead and register your mark or your brand without you ever knowing about it. So the brand hijackers are local individuals, local businesses who register a trademark in China, which is obviously owned by another company and in another jurisdiction. And basically what this registrant is trying to do is that he's trying to use the success of the marketing and PR that's been done on that brand elsewhere to then utilize that. They ask for licensing fees from you. They may even sue for infringement if you bring products or services into the Chinese market, okay? Now, the downside of these brand hijackers is the fact that they can completely tarnish the image of the brand in China. They can sell inferior goods, they can sell inferior services, they can start to have a marketing campaign that takes away the philosophy that you've been trying to create for your brand over the last years. So it's really bringing everything down, which you want to avoid, okay? Because you want to bring your brand that is an overseas brand into China with a light and a glow that is going to pique people's interests into buying your products, okay? IP squatters are basically people who have registered your brand probably 5-10 years ago, because they heard about you, they saw that it was available. You never had the intention of coming into the market, and they're basically squatting on this brand, waiting for them to come in so that eventually they can claim trademark infringement or ask for licensing fees, etc. So IP hijackers, usually they do it, as you're coming into the market, and IP is always, brand protection is always at the bottom of people's lists, which is such a pity. It should be at the top before you set foot into China. And I'm trying to get people's mindset around that this should be the first thing that you do. The hijackers take it right away as you're entering, because they get familiar with your brand as you're entering. The squatters, they probably registered it years before. And now as you're coming in, you're starting to look to register it, and you see that it's owned by somebody else, which is really tough. One thing I just want to highlight here is that whether it's trademark squatting or whether it's trademark hijacking or brand hijacking, brand squatting, this is a serious problem in China. And obviously the China Trademark Office has continued its effort to restrain preemptive bad faith filings. Okay, people make the assumption that they're not making this effort, but they truly are making this effort. They are trying to go out there to block registrants if they can see that it is a bad faith filing. But sometimes it's not always so easy to identify that. Now there are, I believe, 3 to 4 claims courts purely for trademark registrations, predominantly in the tier 1 cities. So I definitely know Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Beijing have them, and I think Shenzhen does too, where you as a Westerner can go with your IP lawyer to claim the fact. So it is becoming a fairer playing field for Westerners to be able to go to court. The downside is you need proof. You need proof of this bad faith, okay? It's not easy to obtain, okay? Now, generally speaking, if you've registered a trademark, and this is the advantage under the IP squatters, is if they would have registered the mark and they would not have utilized it for a period of 3 years, and you have proof to show that they have not utilized it for a period of 3 years, you have the ability to go to the claims court to get your trademark back without paying any fees besides the lawyer's fees and the court's time. Okay, so it is very important to make this type of analysis. Now, should somebody own your IP in China, what does this mean for you? Okay, now this is a really big question, all right, because I think a lot of people are not realizing the implications. If somebody owns your IP, if somebody owns your brand, it is illegal for you to sell any goods or services bearing that brand in China. It is illegal for you to manufacture or source goods bearing that brand in China. It is illegal for you to provide any services locally in China bearing that brand in China. It is illegal for you to market or do any public relations in China bearing that brand, okay? So you ultimately cannot do anything if somebody else is owning your IP. So that is really something that you need to investigate, okay? What should be your trademark strategy in China? Particularly, as this is the topic of today's presentation, particularly brand protection on e-commerce platforms, okay? Now, the first thing you need to do is you need to do a search, okay? You need to do a search whether your brand assets have already been registered or not. If there are no problems, then you need to file as soon as possible, okay? And it is easy and quick to file as long as you have done those homework pieces of understanding what assets you want to file, who's going to own those assets, and in what classes you want to register in, okay? Be thorough with that homework. If there are no issues and basically the conclusion from the search is that there are excellent chances or even just good chances for registration, go for it as soon as possible, okay? On the other side of things, you need to engage a monitoring service to see whether your brand is already being promoted, sold, or used online. Okay, now you could do this by yourself. If you really want to save costs and you're really thinking about budgets, you could definitely do this yourself. You could go onto Taobao, you can go onto Tmall, you can go onto the various e-commerce platforms as soon as you have set up your account. You can go onto Bing.cn and do searches. You can do this all by yourself. The advantage of utilizing a monitoring service is because they have the technical capability to create algorithms that are constantly checking for your brand through a variety of different platforms. So although your intention might be, I just want to sell on Tmall, and you haven't actually searched on the other platforms, the monitoring service will tell you, oh, red flag, on JD.com, somebody is selling your brand. Okay? So you've got to, look, again, everyone's on a tight budget with COVID and everyone's had to revamp their budgets for the year. And I understand that adding additional cost is tough. But doing this type of monitoring service by yourself is just going to be tedious work. It is going to accumulate hours spent on just doing that. And you might not know the best methodology. So outsourcing it to a monitoring service, and I'm not trying to sell us here, we don't even offer this service, right? I'm just telling you why it's so good, is by outsourcing this monitoring service, you have the capability of someone using proper technology with proper algorithms to check all the platforms, all of the search engines to see whether your brand is being promoted and used or products being sold online, okay? This is something that is extremely, extremely important, because what it will then show to you is whether there are product counterfeiters out there that are selling your product at a lower quality or selling a completely, similar but different product, but using your brand, so that actually consumers get confused and don't understand what your true brand and essence is. Okay, so obviously searching and finding counterfeiters is the first hurdle. Okay, and you've got to utilize these monitoring services to help you. Getting them then to stop damaging a brand's reputation is obviously the second, because you might very well find people, for example, your suppliers, that are selling your lesser quality products, i.e. products that might have slight defects that for you wouldn't be able to put on the market, but it's no issue for them, okay? That have labels then with your brand. And I have a case study of this where I had a client who was looking to get into e-commerce, and they did a random, they basically got lucky. They did a random search on one of the e-commerce platforms. They sell baby blankets, and they have a special style to the blanket, the special designs on those blankets, and then obviously the label. And they actually uncovered the designs on one of the e-commerce platforms because they did their own internal search. When they then investigated the ownership, because you can see who is owning that little shop on whatever e-commerce platform there is, it was one of their suppliers who was actually selling the blankets with the designs, changing the labels, but utilizing the designs and utilizing the stock that had defects on them. Okay, so first step is searching and finding the counterfeiters, and the second step is obviously stopping the damage that it can incur on your brand's reputation, okay? The next step is that if you are engaged in e-commerce in China, you've got to adopt an online brand protection strategy. You've got to invest in the technology. So, the first 3 steps for me are critical prior to even transacting. But once you are engaged in e-commerce, this has to be continuous. You can't do it once, register your brand, and make the assumption that because your brand is registered, that people aren't going to counterfeit your products. You've got to either invest in the technology yourself in order to be able to maintain this flow of information as to whether people are selling counterfeit products. and utilizing your brand, or outsource it again to a monitoring service that can do it for you. Okay, but don't make the assumption that this is just done in the research phase. This is something that you've got to do continuously. And it's important to not just do this on the e-commerce platforms, it is also important to do it on the various social media sites where your brand and your public relations actually occur, where articles might be produced about your product, where there might be negative comments or trolls that are there highlighting things about your product that will be negative, okay? So it is extremely important to make sure that you are going through that process continuously. Now, if you find that somebody is in the process of filing your trademark and it has not been registered yet, but they're in the process of filing it, or somebody has already filed your trademark, or you have found people that are selling counterfeit products online, you need to go to an IP lawyer, okay? And this is part of my China roadmap methodology where I really emphasize the whole concept around building up your ecosystem, okay? So if you have to go to civil litigation, if there's a custom seizure of goods, or whatever else there is, you want to be able to go to that backup person who is going to help you go through those procedures. Please, please, please don't choose an IP lawyer abroad. Use an IP lawyer in China who knows the local regulations and has a network of people, either to judges, courts, whatever it might be able to get you that one step further ahead. And there are a whole bunch of excellent IP lawyers out there, okay? Again, don't always make the assumption that it's expensive. If you get into a civil litigation, it's anyhow going to be expensive. So make sure you've got the right lawyer on your team to defend you, okay? So I'm going to give you a case study here. So, the first case study I offered was regarding this company who was creating these baby blankets, and they had basically the supplier was using the designs with the blankets having minor defects and swapping out the labels. Okay. The other case study is of a company that actually registered their trademark, and at the 9-month mark, they got a letter. Actually, they didn't get a letter. They got an email from a Chinese individual who had written a letter to say, please stop utilizing your brand, otherwise I will take you to court. Thinking that this was kind of fake. In any case, the client actually forwarded the email to their IP lawyer. Lo and behold, and I mean, I'm not even joking about the timing. I mean, you will all laugh. This IP hijacker registered the brand 2 weeks before, less than 2 weeks before they had actually done. I mean, the filing dates are unbelievable, okay? It's just coincidence. It was unreal. But as a consequence, they had the choice of either approaching this owner saying, we'll buy it from you, but you've got no idea what they're going to charge because they can just throw a number out there, which then you'll have to, emphasize. You'll have to show that they did it in bad faith, but there's no proof or evidence on that. It's too early for that 3-year mark to say they've never used it. So what do you do? And in the end, what this client did was they did a complete rebrand. Luckily, they were in the service sector, which made it a little bit easier to do a rebrand, but it was a tough 6 months to do the rebrand and get everything back up. You've got to imagine changing your website, changing your domain name, changing all your marketing material, all your name cards, service agreements, invoice template. I mean, everything had to be updated. It's painful, okay? So again, if you're on here, you should really be thinking about registering as soon as possible. Now, here are certain tips, obviously, because a lot of people don't want to pay for a monitoring service, which I completely understand when you're on a very tight budget. I just wanted to provide tips on how to find infringing products online. So this is just a bullet point format, okay? So basically, you go on to the various e-commerce platforms. or you go to the search engines, so Baidu or Bing, and you can search for names which are identical or similar to your brand or product name. Search for your brand or product name in Chinese. So Chinese consumers like to translate brand names into Chinese. So, you know, where possible, try to use a translation tool to search the e-commerce sites in Chinese. And then also on the Chinese search engines, utilize your normal brand name, but also think about the translations and what might be there, okay? And yeah, and do your own first search. Again, it won't be as good as using a monitoring service, but it could be an excellent first step for you to understand what's out there, okay? It's a huge e-commerce market out there, and it's a huge search engine. So it's a matter of just knowing, you know, what is out there, if anything. The next is how to spot a suspicious sale on the e-commerce platforms. So again, you know, this is kind of a bullet point list because, you know, the following indicators of a counterfeit, I mean, the following is often indicators of counterfeit products or unlicensed sales, yeah? So, you know, if the listing was made by an individual or company who is not involved in your official distribution channel in China, that's a red flag. If the product is listed several times with a wide variation between prices, again, that's a bit of a red flag. If the vendor has a large number of units available for sale, then again, you know, it might be a red flag. So these are kind of suspicions that are out there when you're doing your investigations and you see people that are selling either under your brand or selling very similar products, then it's important to highlight this. Your biggest question might be then next, what are the Chinese platforms doing to help fight infringement? Now in 2019, there were new e-commerce regulations that came out that gave a certain liability to the platforms to make sure that if a company wanted to sell a product online, they have to provide as a document the trademark license, okay? So if you as a company want to work with Alibaba, JD, VIP, Suning, Pinduoduo, WeChat, whatever it might be, they should be asking you for your trademark license for China. And if you don't have it, they will probably not work with you. It is a preliminary criteria now because the liability for them is quite high now if there are people selling counterfeit products, okay? They can actually be taken to court. So what are these platforms? And I've given here 6 examples. So just to highlight a little bit about what the platforms are doing. So Alibaba, they have an Alibaba intellectual property protection platform, which is used to report infringing listings on any of the Alibaba group platforms, including Taobao, Tmall, Tmall Global, 1688, Alibaba, AliExpress, okay? Instructions on how to use the platform are provided in English. You will need to create an IPP account. And once logged into the IPP account, there will be a more detailed protection guide that illustrates examples of what evidence and descriptions will be most effective, okay? So if you then upload your proof of your IP rights and Alibaba then verifies these documents, you'll be able to submit your complaint. Okay, so it's all online. And that's obviously if you've done it yourself. If you're utilizing a monitoring service, the monitoring service will actually tell you what's come up in their searches, and they will then ask you, what should your next steps be? Do you want to file a complaint, which you should probably think about doing, etc. So that's from the Alibaba side. I'm not going to go into too much detail about each one, but I just want to highlight that all of them are doing something. On JD.com, you can file an IPR complaint on JD.com via its English IPR protection system. Again, you will need to register a Joybuy account, follow the instructions, upload your IP documents and your ID documents, and you cannot go on to the next step until all of this information has been verified, okay? And again, there are guides online to help you go through the various steps. VIP.com offers a no registration IPR complaint system. You can report multiple infringing brands or listings and one complaint along with a statement of your claim, and you will get then feedback. Suning.com, to report an IP violation on Suning.com, you need to register an account and have it verified with your identity documentation. And once that's verified, you can file everything. The only downside to Suning.com right now is that it's in the Chinese language. WeChat as well. Now, WeChat is obviously a social media platform and a payment platform, but it is now starting to be utilized more and more as a trading platform, right? And they are seeing an increasing amount of IP infringing products. And users can advertise and sell products either via public or private or individual accounts. So they also have an app-based online complaint system. Again, something just to mention here, you don't have to do all of this yourself, okay? I'm telling you what's available. You can make complaints. There is a fair playing field out there in China now, okay? And it's just a matter of creating a system guideline for yourself. You can outsource a lot of these functions to companies that do, for example, the monitoring service and then file those complaints to the various platforms. That is a great first step for you to get these infringers off the platforms and to then promote your organization properly and clearly. And it is a great PR opportunity for you to say, we've caught bad guys, we've caught the infringers. That was not our product. It's going to court, and now we're going to start promoting ourselves. Okay, catch the bad guys, guys. Yeah, catch them. Make that effort. You don't have to do all of this work by yourself. Pinduoduo is another major app-based social e-commerce platform, and they are also launching an online IP protection system, and they did that already at the end of 2018. And again, you have to submit a variety of credentials, criteria. It has to be verified, and then comes the feedback. So this is just 6 examples of what the platforms are doing, and it's all based from the 2019 e-commerce regulations that popped up, because there is a liability that is befalling on these e-commerce sites. In making sure that the people that are promoting their products and selling their products are the true owners of those products and the brand. Okay, something that my 6-year-old has just come up with and is saying a hell of a lot: easy peasy lemon squeezy. This is all not difficult. Okay, remember, preemption by action is your best and least expensive form of protection. Yeah, it's not complicated to register your brand in China and go through these monitoring systems, okay? That is your first step going into the market and making sure that the e-commerce strategy that you're developing is fully protected, okay? The application process to register your trademark, I've listed here, actually the first 4 documents are the most critical. You need 4 documents to submit. Okay, power of attorney to let the person in China submit it. You got to have a registration order highlighting the classes and subclasses. You've got to have a soft copy of all of your trademark assets in JPEG format, and you've got to have proof of who's going to own those assets. The last document is a priority document. You've got to wait 3 months after submission to apply for that, okay? But you can go through a priority step, which will cost a little bit more. Not complicated. Again, don't think, just do, all right? Can't emphasize this more. You are all on here to develop a solid e-commerce strategy. This is number 1. This is step number 1. You can't go into the e-commerce market without having done this, okay? Easy peasy lemon squeezy, don't think, just do it. I hope you keep those 2 phrases in your mind. So I'm just going to end today with a conclusion, and then I'm going to go through 2 case studies, which are my 2 worst case studies that I've experienced in 17 years. So the first is safeguard your brand. Remember, one of my first slides was, what is the worth of your brand to you? What is the value? Can you even place a value? Yeah, for those of you that have been in family businesses for God knows how long, you've had generations of your family create a brand. You don't want to just go it down the drain for the Chinese market, which could be such a potential market for you. So again, just 3 very short steps. I'm trying to downsize everything so you guys really get the picture and the pressure to register. One is registering the IP rights. One is monitoring, the second step is monitoring the e-commerce sites. And the third is making sure that you request for the takedowns of the counterfeiters or infringing goods. Okay? You've got to go through those 3 steps. Okay? Make sure you are safeguarding your brand. Okay? So if some of you, there were a lot of you that were mentioning you're newbies, right? Which means that you're investigating the market. E-commerce is something that you see as a great opportunity. You know, as you're doing this research and investigation, start the process, register your IP, start monitoring these e-commerce sites. I just want to emphasize here, you know, if you get daunted and overwhelmed by the research that this pops up, i.e. someone's already registered your trademark, or you find so much counterfeit going on these e-commerce sites, you might just say, you know what, I don't have the resources or the mindset right now to go into China. And that's fine, okay, because you might not have the financial resources because there's so many counterfeiters and whatnot. So you might have to wait this out until you do. Or at least have a first discussion with an IP lawyer about what options exist and how much it is going to cost you. So you've got a financial value to aim for when you do want to reinvestigate the Chinese market. Okay. Now let's hit the case studies. I'm going to end today's presentation with 2 case studies. So the first one, and if you've joined previously, you would have heard these case studies before, okay? But these are the 2 worst ones that I've experienced. So the first one is a German lock company. That's why the picture of the lock. They came into China, I want to say now almost 25 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe even. And right from the get-go, because as you can imagine, back then, the market wasn't really open, meaning there was much greater language barriers. And in those days, you can even set up a trading company as a foreign investor. You could do it in the free trade zone, but you didn't have any import-export rights, so you still had to use an agent. So what this company did was they utilized a distributor. They formulated a fantastic relationship that really went through numerous number of years. And they signed an exclusivity deal with this distributor. The distributor reached all the KPIs. They did a fantastic job. They even allowed the distributor, knowingly, to register their trademark in China in order to better facilitate their sales. Okay? They never, ever got information, knowledge about why would they ever give their distributor the rights to the trademark. Now, as the company grew, as the volume and value of the business grew, and it took time, it took about 15, 16 years for that to occur. The company, as they were starting to do business trips, they were realizing, well, first of all, they could get around themselves. So they didn't need the distributor really to help them anymore for translation purposes. They could also do a lot of the communication with customers directly. They didn't really need the distributor to act as an intermediary. They had the connections now. And so as the company grew, you know, they started to reflect. Can we go independent? Can we get rid of this distributor? Because on top of everything, China opened up in such a way that as a foreign investor, you could set up your own trading company, meaning they could import themselves, keep inventory on the ground, and sell. So ultimately, they did a financial analysis, which indicated to them that it would be so much more profitable if they eliminated the distributor. Now, I don't know, maybe they didn't do it in the right way, or they didn't have the discussion in the right way. I was not there. I can't tell you how that discussion went down, but ultimately the conclusion was that the distributor lost face because he said, you know, why are you leaving me? Why? We can negotiate on the commission rate. I mean, we can negotiate on all of this, but why do you want to leave me? Anyway, they were adamant, right? They were adamant about getting out of this relationship. And what was the leverage point of the distributor? The leverage point of the distributor was, please don't forget, I own your trademark. I own your brand in China. So unless you pay me and continue to pay me a licensing fee, or I sell the mark to you, you won't be able to do anything in China. Quite threatening, isn't it? Yeah. So again, what is the value of your asset and your brand? Okay. Don't just give it away. Register it yourself. Understand who's going to own it. Don't just simply give it away. If you want to license it to a distributor, do it. Then you have a licensing agreement. Fantastic. It's a way of getting money out of China. Okay. Talk to people about how to structure all of this so that you are thinking about tax efficiency, thinking about optimization, you're talking about just general trade flow efficiency, okay? You need to think about all of these aspects, all right? So that's one case study. Second case study. Now, this was a consumer products company that's quite well known in Europe. They produce a variety of consumer products, everything from cooking machines like raclette machines to air fryers to manicure and pedicure kits. I mean, it's a whole variety of consumer products, electric consumer products. They had, at this period of time, and still today, no intention of selling into China. But they had between, I would say, 80 and 100 different suppliers, all producing different components, finished products, etc. Okay. Now, with one supplier, they had a falling out and they terminated the agreement with them to manufacture a certain product. Again, I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they negotiated that. No idea, I was not there. But the outcome was that this supplier lost face and, as a revenge tactic, registered their mark in China. They registered the brand in China, and then they registered the brand at the China Customs Office. Okay, which is another big tip that I want to highlight in today's presentation. This meant that upon export from China, if there was on the packaging or on the product the brand, it would not be released because the only company that could export that brand was the supplier, that one supplier. Okay, which meant that all the other 80 to 100 suppliers, no export, if there was the brand product name on it. Now, you know, this consumer's product got into this situation and they said, well, I mean, you know, we're never selling into China, so we don't need to register our brand. This is ridiculous. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing in China, whether you're simply doing third-party manufacturing, whether you are, whatever it might be, you need to register your brand, okay? They also obviously had to go through civil litigation. They had to show proof that this supplier was doing a bad faith filing. It took months for them to get the products out. So a solution that they had was for those consumer products that didn't have the brand on the product, they utilized blank cartons, which is why I've got this here. They utilized the blank cartons to get the products out. But that, you know, there were a lot of consumer products that had the brand on it. Okay, so think very carefully about this whole brand registration and the supply chain aspect, okay? Make sure you're doing your brand registration with the CTMO office, but also then with customs so that there is no halt upon the importation or exportation of your goods into and out of China. And that will be critical if you're going to go into cross-border e-commerce. Okay? So let's recap the importance of protecting your brand in China. Okay, we've got to protect your brand and use it in the Chinese market. Our goal is to utilize it so you don't have to create something else. Okay, by registering your mark, it helps you to clear customs and trade with your brand on cartons and labels and on the product themselves. If you're in service, or in addition, you're also providing services, it helps you to provide services in China with your mark and your brand. Okay? It means nobody can take your brand away from you. You own it. And last but not least, because this is what people forget, it helps to develop repatriation strategies if you want to then set up trademark licensing agreements. Okay? So what I want to ask you is, have you already registered your brand in China? Type in yes or no. People are being quite quiet. Okay. Oh, it's a mixture. There's some yeses and there's some nos. For those of you that are a no, I would like you to take this opportunity to create your brand protection strategy. Think very carefully about how you want to set this up, okay? If you want to have a talk with me, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you and to go through how to develop that strategy. Just so you're aware, we can help you to create a strategy. We can also help to do trademark searches and trademark registrations. We can also help you to analyze the repatriation strategies if you are at that stage. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to type in this link to my diary. And if you would like to set up a conversation with me, just click on this link and you'll get straight into my diary for that. You can also email me at christinawoodburnglobal.com. You can connect with me on WeChat. This is my ID. And if you want to look for me up on LinkedIn, I'll just give you the name that's listed up there. Okay, these are 4 different ways you can reach out to me to have a conversation. Please do expect a call from my colleague Joe. He's going to also be reaching out to you next week. In case you don't set up a meeting with me, he's going to call you just to understand whether you liked this webinar series, what you got out of it, and you can also use that opportunity to set up a call with me as well. So do expect a call from Joe too. So we're going to move on to the questions. Let's see what there is. So there's a question from Jack. Are you going to advise which or where to locate the monitoring services in China? Jack, I think it's not a matter of which or where to locate. It's a matter of where the company is that is doing the monitoring services is located. So you'll find a lot of these companies are located, or at least the ones I know, are located in Shanghai and Beijing. There will probably be a few that are also located in Guangzhou or Shenzhen. I'm not familiar with those. But if you go into google.com, you type in monitoring services China, there'll be a whole bunch of companies that are listed there that can do that for you. I hope I answered your question, Jack. That's the only question that came in. A couple of people had to log off because of other commitments. I'm going to stay on again. If you've got any other questions, you know, feel free to ask. All right, so Alan is asking, I've started the process of researching my brand name, but now have confusing results. The UK solicitor has suggested there are similar brands and marks, while DTI has suggested we should proceed. What's your view? What's my view? Usually, when you do a trademark search, the solicitor should be giving you a chance of success. So what is the chance of success that they've given you? They can't just tell you that there are similar brands and marks. What is their feedback, actually? Is there a 50% chance of success? Is there a 20% chance of success? Is there an 80% chance of success? You should be getting this type of detail from your solicitor about that trademark search. And then ask for alternatives. So if they're saying there's a 20% chance, could you do something where you create a design with the logo and the name that might then have the opportunity to get registered? Okay, but I would definitely ask for further feedback on that chance of success. Okay. I would not move forward until you know that information. That would be my point of view. Jack was asking, Alan, please tell me if I answered your question properly. I hope I did. Jack was asking, is it safe to do a general search for brands on Chinese search engines? I don't know what you mean by safe. Is it safe? Is it valuable? Yeah, I think I think you could do it. Go on to Baidu.com, go on to Bing.com. Again, do those searches in English and Chinese if you have that ability, and see what pops up. You know, I'm not a marketing expert. I am not, I don't run e-commerce platforms and sites. That's not what we do. But as a general search, as a first-time search, I think it doesn't hurt you to do that. If you cannot analyze what is popping up, you might need further assistance from an expert who can give you that analysis and say, you know, based on this search, you know, this is what's popped up and whatnot. When you say safe, I'm not sure if I understood the word safe. Is it safe to do the general search? You can absolutely do it. I don't see what's the harm in doing it. Jack, let me know if I've answered that question as well. The question from Joachim, what about those layers approaching? For example, us, that a company has registered a similar brand as ours. They offer the follow-up on that topic. Should we just ignore those approaches? I'm really sorry, Joachim, I don't understand your question. For example, a company has registered a similar brand as ours. They offer the follow-up on that topic. Joachim, I'm really sorry. I don't know what you're trying to ask. Could you ask it in a different way? Sorry. I'll stay on the line so I answer you. But if you could just ask that again, that'd be very, very helpful. So Jack was saying, it's a very good question, Jack. If we file the trademark registration and have 12 to 16 months for completion, could anyone else use our trademark or register it? It's a first to file system, Jack. So hopefully what you've done first is a search. If there are similar marks, similar trademarks, similar brand identities, similar brand assets, they are similar. They're not exact. So there's always a chance of getting it accepted, okay? The disadvantage of this whole process is you will hear of whether it moves forward at around the 9th or 10th time frame, okay? In theory, if you were the first to file for that specific mark that is similar to but not identical to the others, in theory, you should have a chance of success to get it registered, okay? Depending on the type of feedback that comes in from the CTMO office. No, of course, somebody else could file it, but if you were the first to file, they actually won't win, okay? If you get the acceptance that your trademark has been accepted and has been approved, you can go back to that company and say, please stop using the mark. You are you're infringing on our mark, okay? And so they then are required to stop, all right? But you've got to imagine, there are millions of companies out there in China right now that have never registered their trademark, but are doing some form of marketing in China. I'm gonna let that sink in. There are a lot of companies out there that have not registered their trademarks or their brands in China, and as a consequence, they are still utilizing it for marketing and PR issues. So unless someone stops you, you can keep doing it. Okay, which is why I so recommend, when I was doing the 3-step strategy, I was saying you've got to do the registrations of the IP, you've got to utilize the monitoring service, and then what is most critical is that you've got to request the takedowns of companies that are infringing or counterfeiting, okay? If you don't stop them, they're just going to keep doing it, right? I hope I answered your question, Jack. Margaret was asking, we have registered our brand name, the English name, in China for many years, but your point on labels and logos is very useful. Is the translation of the name into Chinese as important? There seems to be so many variations of characters. Margaret, this is all about your strategy. I have a Chinese name, my company has a Chinese name. When we registered our company in China, we had to have a Chinese company name, as everyone does. But I don't use that Chinese name for any marketing or any PR. The only place you will see my Chinese name, because my agreements are in English language, will be on a VAT invoice, on a FAPIA. Okay? And for that, I don't have to do a trademark registration. It's fine that my company name, my full company name, is on that FAPIA, but I don't use it for anything else. It's a strategy that we have developed because we are catering to foreign investors coming into China. So the English name is what is vital for our marketing initiatives and what we're doing. Plus, we're a service company. For you to decide if you are utilizing a Chinese brand name and you haven't registered yet, but you're utilizing it on products, on marketing, on commercials, on advertisement, on whatever, you need to register it as soon as possible. The question of whether it is good for you to register, whether it is good for you to create a Chinese brand name, that's a strategy that you have to internally discuss with your marketing team. I can't answer that. That's up to you. But if you do plan on doing it, you should really register it and take that opportunity to register. Oh, Jack, I understand what you're talking about. So Jack was asking a question previously, whether it is safe for you to do a search engine search for the brand names. When you do a search engine search, Jack, people aren't aware of what you're searching. So doing searches doesn't alert anybody, because anybody can do a search for a product or a brand name. And unless they really investigate your IP and where you're coming, I mean, nobody really does that, right? So it's not, by doing the searches, it's not going to alert anybody. What alerts the hijackers and the squatters is when you come into the market and you start having marketing campaigns and you start branding and having these branding initiatives and PR initiatives. That's what's going to alert them. But doing, I don't know, search engine searches or searching on e-commerce platforms, that's not going to alert anyone unless they really investigate where the IP address is coming from. Okay, so Joachim has said, we have been approached several times from different lawyers that a Chinese company has registered an almost similar brand as ours, or almost, or within an extension, and the lawyers are offering to do a search and a follow-up on the brand protection. So far, we've ignored these approaches and have never heard anything after that. We think it just might be a money-making method. So Joachim, I'm going to tell you a personal case study. That's a wonderful question. Okay, so I went through a situation where I worked for a previous company and we had a logo, a design, right? And it was in blue color. And we had a competitor who created exactly the same design and made it in red. But as our priority was at that time to just register the words, we never registered the logo, we never fought them. And they never came to us to say, please stop using it because it was a different color. It was a similar brand. We did exactly the same services, but thankfully there was no litigation and there was no fight, okay? And we never bothered with the complaint because we felt that the name of our company was more important than the actual logo. In your situation, first of all, I'm really surprised that you've been approached by a lawyer. I've never heard of someone being approached by a lawyer. That could very well be a money-making scheme. However, as long as you have registered your mark in China, you will find that there will be similar marks that are registered as well. Okay, it can't be avoided. Okay, it just simply can't. You will always have similar marks in any of the classes or subclasses. If you really feel that this company that has a similar mark, or I'm not even sure if the lawyer made you aware of who this company is, and it bothers you because it's a competition, then you can file a civil litigation, but that's when you should be talking to maybe not them as a lawyer, but somebody else about what your options are. But if you've had no issues regarding your existing mark and it hasn't affected you that someone else has a similar mark in terms of business revenue or marketing initiatives or anything like that, I would just leave it. But obviously I feel like you're on here because it is something that is concerning you. So as a strategy, what you could do is do your own trademark search to see what pops up in the classes and subclasses that you're in to identify if, how similar are the marks and brands and whether that will affect your business. That's just a research exercise that you could do. I hope that answers your opinion, gives you the answer to what you were asking for. Okay, so if Joachim, if it hasn't affected you, then just leave it. I mean, if it gets to a point where you're really worried, again, you can just do this exercise of doing this search, see what pops up, and then take action from there. But at least, it might, that simple search just might give you a peace of mind. That was the last question. Anybody else? These are really, really great questions, and I really thank you for going into details, everyone. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Again, I'll stay on if people do. Again, if you want to set up a meeting, look, guys, no strings attached. It's just a matter of talking, okay? China is so complex and complicated that being able to just simply brainstorm with someone over a conversation always helps. You might gain ideas. Me knowing a little bit more about what you do might give you a better direction of what your next steps should be. So, again, no strings attached. I'm not going to charge you for these calls. It's just a way of us getting to know each other. Part of the roadmap methodology is that you should all be building up an ecosystem and of people that can help you. So that's what I'm offering today. It's just that type of help. And don't forget, my colleague Joe will be reaching out as well. We'll be calling you guys next week if I haven't heard from you already to see how you liked the webinar series, how you liked today's webinar, whether it was of use, what might be your next action steps, etc. Don't forget, we've got 4 more webinars. We've got tomorrow looking at e-commerce business models. I'll be talking about the cross-border e-commerce business model as well as on-the-ground models. We'll be talking on Wednesday and Thursday. We've got the Alanders group who's going to be coming along talking about the logistics, the warehousing, the customs, the taxes, all surrounding cross-border and domestic. So this might have confused some people. Cross-border is if you want to sell from your home jurisdiction directly into China. China domestic e-commerce means that you are producing in China, you don't want the goods to leave, and you want to sell through e-commerce, okay? And then on Friday, we will be talking about finding people if you want to have people to implement your e-commerce strategy, all right? So if you haven't signed up for those, go to our website, woodburnglobal.com/events, and sign up. Thank you all so much for joining. We had a great number of people here on today, great interaction, loved it. This is the fun part for me, is getting all these questions. So again, thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you all again later on in the week. Take care and goodbye.